Hello, hello, hello. This music feels incredibly ominous. Hey, LS Dev. Hey, Diginanigans. This song is called The Clouds of Destiny. LS Dev? Oh, you're the YouTube leaderboard thing is weird. Yeah, it's strange to me too. Just keep chatting. Climb that leaderboard, I guess. What do I want to listen to today? Not this. Let's see, figure it out. Well, thank Godot, it's Friday here, you know. This music is crazy. All right, what do we want? Maybe this. We haven't listened to this in a while. Hey, Nix, how's it going? Everyone welcome our hype train conductor, Nix. We're back. We're going to close out the week here. How's everyone doing? Everyone ready for the weekend? 410. Oh, that's the mod count today? Oh, yeah, I forgot. We got to get our daily mod count from Nix. Up to 410 RimWorld mods installed. It's incredible. Maybe we'll do a Let's Play tomorrow. I don't know. I'm hesitant to because YouTube has decided to, like, recommend this to people for some reason over the last week or so. Oh no, my green screen. I think it's because we recently qualified for YouTube Partner, for the first tier of YouTube Partner. I think they have like quotas or something. I don't know. It boggles my mind, but I'll take it. Very much looking forward to the weekend. Yeah. Yeah, Shenanigans, same. But yeah, I'm hesitant to do a Let's Play stream just because nobody watches those. But we'll see. We'll see how I feel. I feel like we're making good progress. YouTube Partner, woo. Yeah, I know, right? It's crazy. It still boggles my mind. Come on, camera. Let's get it together. Pretend like we know what we're doing here. Nix, you were concerned about stuff in RimWorld that's like, you're concerned about turns per second. You're saying like you have to abandon this asteroid base you're on because of an old save you have or something like that. Some bad saves. You're concerned about your turns per second. It's really funny. This is exactly what it's like to talk to anyone who's played Dwarf Fortress for a long time. They're like, here's what you got to do to like up those FPS in those fortresses, and you know, those late stage fortresses. You got to keep that FPS up. It's very similar. LS, you're sometimes. Oh, you're talking about the YouTube leaderboard too. Yeah, I don't know if it updates the message, right? So I think it's like that was your position when you sent that message. I don't know. It is very strange. It's a little silly to have a leadership board when there's two people in the chat, right? Anyway, I worked on this a little bit last night. This door layer part. It was weird. We were getting wrong behavior at the end of the last stream. We were getting some bugs. So I went through and I reworked this a little bit. I realized that part of the problem was we were checking the x-axis and then the y-axis. Well, we were doing it the other way around, but there was a compounding effect from like a door might initially get set to invalid and then it on second thought, it's like, oh, I could be this instead. So I added some checks to it to make sure that the door, if it's invalid at any point, it stays invalid. And that gets us to where we are, which I will launch here. Factorio has a whole community dedicated to optimizing ginormous factories for performance. Oh yeah, I bet the Factorio community is really big into that too. Turns per second, ticks per second. I got it, Nix. Yeah, it's funny. It's just funny to me because it's very similar to how Dwarf Fortress works in terms of like trying to keep the simulation stable. So now when we make our little thing, if we make a little room here, we have pretty much all the door behavior we would expect for validity issues. So I can put, so we've got our invalid block here because you can't just put a door in the middle of a room. Oh, that was a little weird. What happened right here? It's because the flood fill still considers that. Interesting. Good to know. But we can put a door on the side. We can put a second door so that it's double door, triple door. If I try to go to 4 doors, they all flip to being invalid. If I have like a valid door and then I put a block in front of it, it flips the block behind it to invalid. I can't really do much better than that. Like, we can't flip all the door tiles to be invalid because that would require like recursively checking the validity of blocks, which I don't want to do. But yeah, it pretty much works just fine. The thing that I want to change now, I think, is I want to add invalid blocks as a tile map layer rather than being just a kind of, right now it's just kind of an aspect of the door layer, but I kind of want it to be its own tile map layer, kind of like an overlay, so that regardless of what's being rendered underneath, it'll just render the invalid tile over it, so you don't have to worry about it. I think that would be good. So yeah, I think we're going to keep working on the invalid tiles today. The overlay doesn't work, which is a curious thing. I think it's because we didn't include a source ID for that. I'm a little confused about that, but I think we can do it. It's going to be kind of weird, but it'll work just fine. So the first thing to do will be to set up a tile map layer for it, which is going to be a little wonky. We can get rid of this. Make a new layer. Copy over one of these layers. Now we just need to replace, I'm going to replace the underlying texture and then worry about the outlines. So hull invalid block. I actually decided I wanted to change the black outline here with purple. I think that's cool. So now when it runs, the whole outline will be a purplish hue. Hey, Rhiannon Journey, how's it going? Happy Friday. It's really hard to see. Oh, it actually, you can't see it at all because it didn't re-import the atlas. So now if I create a bunch of these, yeah, the outlines are purple, which you can't really tell, but I like it. But yeah, I want to get rid of the intermediate outlines. So we're going to turn these into a tile map layer. It's been a frantic day at work for you, Rhiannon. You're just starting to slow down a bit. That's nice. What we need to do is we need to copy over this kind of stuff. Is this short on top or short underneath here? Looks like this is being trimmed off the top. Yeah, okay, so we can just finish this. Speaking of lo-fi, I've come up with an idea for what to call, you know how we've been talking about Rokupa's Idle Island as like a fun thing about like making a little desktop companion app out of my game tools that's just like a little cargo ship that flies around and like you can see your little pilot falling asleep at the wheel and like wandering around and like moving cargo every once in a while. It's like a little silly little desktop companion, kind of like Rokupa's Idle Island. I was thinking about what I would call that. I think a reasonable name would be something like Lo-Fi Flyby. I like that. It does have a very different vibe than Digital Iliad, but not that different, I don't think. The digital forward kind of thing I think is cool. Lo-Fi Flyby sounds great. Awesome. Yeah, I think that'd be cool. Obviously, that's not something we would do for quite some time. We would need to have the most of the ship simulation done first. But I think it would be cool, and I think there's a strong argument to be made for doing something like that. I think it would be good to have a project up on Steam. Like, I think it would be good to have, like, another little project. It's like a little tiny thing that we can, you know, get some practice getting something on Steam, like getting something published all the way through, even if it's just like for a few dollars or whatever. So I don't want Digital Iliad to be my first like Steam release, you know? And part of me thought I might get a jam game to the point where I'd want to put it up. We'll see. Rhiannon, having that going with some lo-fi music playing in the back would be nice. Yeah. And I kind of want an excuse to, I don't have much experience with doing digital audio, and I would like practice. I think that would be a good excuse to like work on like ambient soundscapes and stuff, sound effects. I would like a good excuse to work on that. Should probably name this layer Invalid all. Didn't DevDuck take a break from Dolphin and release a smaller game on Steam to get the Steam experience and just to get the experience of the entire shipping process? Yes. It was also not totally a game. It was like a Pomodoro thing. It was like a desktop companion kind of deal. It was like Range. Yeah, it was this thing. It was this like cute, oh my god, ads. You think it's a pretty good plan to try to build some name recognition? Yeah, I don't even think that would be the purpose. That could be like a nice benefit. But it's like Rokupa's Idle Island was such a cute little thing. And it's done really well. It was released at the beginning of the year. It's got overwhelmingly positive. It's got thousands of reviews. It's made by a bunch of little developers. Really cute. Would love to do something similar. And then I had no idea, but they're actually making a full game. I don't know. I want to know the timeline of this. I want to know if they were planning on doing this all along, or if this was just a reaction to the positive reception of Rokupa's Idle Island. But clearly they had all the tech for like a full game. And then they just used a subset of it to make their little Idle Island deal, which I think was so smart. And yeah, I would like to explore something similar. But yeah, DevDuck did a similar thing. I'm still in ads. Oh, it doesn't play the ads when I'm off screen. That's smart. Yeah, it was like let me see it. Show us the thing. It was like this little Pomodoro timer. Oh, that's not it. DevDuck has so much video in their videos. It's hard to find what I want. Yeah, it's a little Pomodoro timer. Super cool. This video is not helping me at all. I should have just looked it up on Steam. But yeah, I'm thinking of a desktop companion app style thing too. I think that'd be a fun test of our tools. And just, yeah, we don't want to be we want to beat the statistic. We don't want to be the dev with only one Steam release, right? Oh, we got someone to ban over on Twitch here. We got a spam bot. Let me load up the photon torpedo tube here. Target. And fire. We got him. Yeah. But today we're just...
He's dead, Jim.
He is dead, Jim. We're working on setting up these invalid tile block layer. Which I feel like there's going to be some issues with doing this as its own layer, but I think it's fine. I think it'll be a good thing to do. Diginanigans, depending on how you do an idle app, you could also have it on overlaid on your dev streams. Would add visual interest when you're deep in dev and give you something to drive people to. Ooh, that's a really good idea, Diginanigans. Yeah, just have it in a corner, because that's part of the deal of it anyway, right? Is it's going to be like cut out, like it'll be the silhouette of a ship with all the extraneous window cut out. I don't know how you do that, but I know Godot can. And that'll be cool. Yeah, it's really smart, because then I'll have a demonstration of what the game looks like running next to me at all times, even if I'm deep in like code work. Because yeah, visual interest is definitely a problem I have on the stream when depending on what I'm working on. Especially if it's code, because my code is so bad. Or like this, when I'm doing something like very abstract here. It's like I'm just painting a checkerboard for like 20 minutes. It's probably gonna be longer than that. Yeah, that is a great idea. Good call, good call. Let me add that to my notes here. Could keep it running. Could use it as an overlay. Running during streams. That's a really great idea. Yeah, obviously the hope is that it would get picked up to an extent, like Rokupa. So I'm all about having just a little lo-fi, little companion videos or whatever. I like having that vibe going when I'm working on stuff. I have a hard time focusing when it's people talking, which is funny because that's like my whole deal here, but I would enjoy something like that. And it would be a great early test of the simulation layer and some of that behavior in a pretty low risk environment. Digitanings, at the very least, you could have it as part of your Be Right Back or pre-post stream cards. That's also good. Because, yeah, there's room. There's some room. There's not a ton of room. So, like, if I bring this up, I'd have to rearrange some stuff. You know, we're just flipping through these here. I don't want to confuse people. But, yeah, there's probably something we could do there. There's probably room in the bottom left. Which is probably where I'd put it anyway. I'll have to move my Ko-Fi link, which only one person has ever used. I'm not fishing. I'm not fishing for people to go use it. I'm just saying. I could probably find a new spot for that. Yeah, Nix, stay away. Back off. Hold. Hold. You're already like the stream VIP. Oh, you can see your little choo-choo train little icon. Yeah, you got that. And you'll have that until someone replaces you, which probably won't happen for a long time. Time to rest on your laurels, you know? The only downside of my fun little desktop companion app idea is it probably will take like 6 months, add like 6 months to the development time. But it could be worth it, you know? When you're working on a project this long, it could be worth it. I do feel like I need some cred. I have a couple jam games that are cute, but I need some like actual Steam dev cred. I hope nobody minds that I'm kind of just doing busy work this morning. I'm just hanging out. This is kind of, I like having activities like this. It helps my brain. It frees up parts of my brain to think about stuff when I'm just mindlessly doing work like this. I feel like you need a certain amount of this in your day. Not like a lot. I'm like very pro automation, but I feel like it's important to have something like this. Background task. Your stream, work on what you want. No. Okay. Thanks, Nix. Rhiannon, you're doing busy work combining a bunch of data from a lot of different vendors. Ah, that's fun. Yeah, my day job, I've been working a lot on a lot of tough automation stuff. So I kind of don't feel like it right now. So that's been kind of my work. Otherwise has been just a lot of annoying automation work. So it's kind of nice to just do something like this for a while, just chat. How'd your compositor effect stuff work out, Diginanigans? Do you get any time for that? All right, there's step 1. Time for step 2 here. Is this the right one? No, it's this one. Nix, you're resizing your ship. You're trying to fit a reactor type 5. I haven't even seen that. Yeah, I've accepted in my game that 2 refrigerators is too much right now, but I need to rearrange some stuff. I want a bigger ship, but I'm not prepared to do the work involved in getting additional grab panels right now. So I'm just kind of struggling with what I've got going. I haven't played a lot lately, though. I've been playing a lot of shorter games. All right, we can probably be a little clever about filling this in. Oh, what? Oh, I grabbed the wrong thing. Oh, dang it. Maybe we can't be cleverer. Maybe we do all this first and then do that. We'll do the edges in a second pass. Hey, Nightska. What's going on today? We took a big detour here and we're working on adding like an invalid tile representation that's kind of based on the source engine invalid texture error. So like if you're building something and you right now it only works for doors, so if you place a door and you like do it in a way that's not valid, like you place a random door or you place a door that we don't support, like here we got one single door, double door, triple door. If you try to place a quad door, it just breaks. But right now it's just rendering groups of these blocks. It's not doing our fun auto tiling. So I'm trying to change it so that it's an auto tiling layer so that it'll work like everything else, so that the outlines will update and stuff. It'll be treated like any other auto tiled block. So we're working on that. So I'm working on updating a sprite sheet for it, which is very inefficient. Don't mind this. This is a temporary. This is kind of just what works right now. We really need to put some work into the better sprite sheet construction. But how are you doing? Happy Friday. Diginanigans, you're still playing around with the compositor effects. You haven't fully figured it out yet. You think you can render all your characters to a sub viewport, apply your effects, then combine them into the main viewport based on their depth map versus main scene depth map? I think you can do that. That already sounds kind of close to what you were trying to do anyway, as far as characters and sub viewports. I love sub viewports. They're so powerful in Godot. I honestly underutilize them. I've used them in both my games so far, but I feel like I'm just at the tip of like what you could accomplish. This checkerboard is really hard to like auto select. Otherwise I could probably do this easier. That's pretty cool, Nix. Yeah, you got some wild mods installed. You're weirdly making me want to play Factorio, not RimWorld. I have a Factorio game going. It's Space Age, but it's not like... I turned off Space Age because I kind of want to just do a terrestrial game one last time before I do a Space Age game. Just because I'm like a Train World, Death World kind of Factorio player. I love having these big open maps that are very focused on logistics and defense. That's kind of the... I think Factorio is interesting because you're in control of like what kind of game you want. Much like RimWorld and Dwarf Fortress, like a lot of the motivation to play comes from you. It comes internally from like what you want to do. And I think that's really neat. But it means like if your motivation to play kind of wanes, you kind of just stop. There isn't much to keep you playing. Whereas like when I'm playing my like little auto battlers or whatever, like Mechabellum or whatever, I'm like getting my season points. So I put a game in once a day or something like that just to get my battle pass points or whatever. But I feel like I go hard into some of these games like Cosmeteer or Factorio or whatever, and then I just kind of lose interest and I just stop playing them for months. And then I'll gain interest again and I'll spend like a whole Saturday on it or something like that. It's very, very impulsive. Well, let's use that word. Niceca, you're trying to learn STL today, drawing the first triangle. Oh, the first triangle. The first triangle is always the hardest. I wish you luck on the journey to the first triangle. But you know, once you got that first triangle, then it's easy. It's all quads from there on out, right? Are you interested in doing more low-level game dev stuff? Like, are you interested in things like Odin or whatever? Because we're using Godot here for our project. I don't want to mess around with low-level stuff. I don't want to worry about rendering or anything like that. Shenanigans. One trade-off of doing it the sub-viewport way is your pixels will be based relative to the screen coordinate instead of relative to the model, which you don't like as much. Let me see if I understand what that means. Oh, I see, I see. So the pixelation obviously is not based on your model. It's based on the final screen coordinate, kind of the viewport resolution or whatever, right? Yeah, I could see that having a weird effect on your stuff. But you're kind of down-resing stuff anyway, right? All right, so now we do the half blocks. So we just want this part. We want like a subsection here. Oh, you said something else I should finish reading. But you think there's a couple of things you can do there to make the effect better? You think it won't be as big of a deal once your models are animated? Okay. Yeah, I'm really curious. You have a really interesting workflow. It's like the opposite of my workflow. I'm really interested to see how it works out. Oops. Niceca, well, it's never easy. Yeah, you're trying to learn low-level graphics just to know how it works. That's a great reason to do something. I tend to not do things until I need it. And by then it's like, it can be very frustrating because you're working on something and you're like, oh, hold on, I gotta go veer off into this other direction. So yeah, it's really great to familiarize yourself with some of that stuff early on. At least to the point where you know how you might approach a problem, even if you never really run into the problem when you're working on a project. You found Godot to be much, much easier. Yeah, Godot is great. For our project, we have a separate simulation layer that's running outside of Godot. Just because I didn't want, this is a fairly big game and I didn't want everything to be in the scene tree and stuff. I wanted like very lightweight simulation objects and I wanted to use like a systems-based processing thing. So we ended up splitting our simulation layer out into like an entity component system we wrote. But Godot still does all of our UI and rendering and stuff like that because I don't want to mess around with any of that. You should only reinvent the wheel when you have a strong opinion about wheels, right? Nice, okay. If you were really trying to make a game, you would never start with the low-level things. Too much effort. It can be. It's kind of how you get something unique, though. If you don't do anything yourself, like if you only use like engine-based stuff, then you can have that problem where people look at it and they're like, oh, this is a Unity game, or oh, this is an Unreal game. And your visual identity just comes from the engine that you're in, and I think that's very dangerous nowadays. So it definitely helps to be able to do your own kind of graphic stuff, like whether it's like what DIGITAL is talking about here by like doing interesting workflow stuff or whatever. Or what I'm doing, which is also very strange, like forcing a 3D world to be rendered in 2D tile maps. DIGITAL, you think you need to better work out your scale of everything and how big you want your pixels to be because you want to make the pixel size of rendered characters match the voxel size of the terrain. Yeah, having that similarity is crucial, right? That's why like Blockbench is cool or whatever, because it matches the like voxel resolution with the pixel resolution. Yeah, that's super important. I agree. I think. Then you think you're gonna do, once you've done that, you think you're gonna do actual 2D pixel-based stuff for your various particle effects that you want to make sure also match in scale. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, combining 3D and 2D is always hard. That's good. You don't even know how that can work with Godot. You're treating this code as a node. Yeah, there's like a base node, so the root node. So I'm writing, don't do what I'm doing. Our simulation layer runs in C#. It would have been better if I had just put it in C++ as like a GD extension, but I'm way more comfortable with C# than C++. So yeah, I can show you the code in a second. But basically we run the whole simulation layer in .NET and we don't touch the Godot API except for like syncing at the beginning and the end. We process inputs as they come in from Godot, and we do a sync back from the simulation layer so that the renderer can render anything that needs to be rendered. But yeah, otherwise we try not to touch the Godot API from inside our C# code. Will this work here? Yes. But yeah, it's one of those things. It's like you use what you need. You don't need to use it all. I'm gonna go back and do the half lines in a second. I really don't like the way I've structured these tile maps. I need a much better organization. I'm tempted to separate the underlying texture from the outline, but I think that only works right now because everything we do is completely flat. I think once we have more details, once our textures actually have a sense of like character, I don't think that's gonna work. Like once they have a sense of direction. I don't know if direction's the right word, but right now as we're rendering everything flat, we can get away with a lot. I'm just concerned about that not working in the long run. It was dizzy to look at for a while. So when you say you're not really trying to make a game, you're just learning how to do the different aspects. I think that's a great approach. There's a lot of people that give the advice of make systems, not games. And it's like kind of beginner oriented, but it's like you need a game is this pile of systems, right? And it's like an approach to learning that can be really effective is you learn how those individual systems work. Like you learn how maybe inventory systems work, or like buffs and debuffs, or like combat resolution, or like whatever. And then if you know how all of those individual systems, when it actually comes time to make a game, you're in like a really good spot. In theory, I want to do that with Godot. I have like a template library that I don't work on very often, but it's designed to like make it easier to do game jams. And I think in theory, that's a great approach, to have a lot of generic code or somewhat generic approaches that you could modify to an individual need. Who is Tobias? That's a great idea. Yeah, it is. How's it going, Tobias? Welcome back in. How's it going? Happy Friday. In the sprite rendering part, have you ever thought about auto-generating then from a 3D object? Yeah, that's like the Dead Cells approach, right? And that's actually what Diginanigans is doing. I'm not doing that just because I don't have strong 3D workflow skills. And by strong, I mean any. I need to have my hand held if I have to open Blender. I want to learn a little bit about Blockbench, but yeah, for me, it's just easier to do this 2D approach. So this is like our 2D art style. It's a very low resolution. It means there's very little concern over like anatomy and stuff. And it's very easy for me to figure out where the pixels should go because there aren't a lot of choices. Some people say small resolution is harder. I don't agree yet, but I haven't actually had a lot of time to work on the art this year. It's been almost all code. We've been working on a lot of editor tools, which you saw a little bit of. Am I multi-streaming, Tobias? Yeah, we are multi-streaming between YouTube and Twitch. So yeah, I think working from a 3D workflow or going from a 3D workflow, the 3D to 2D, I think that's super effective. Obviously, there's a lot of literature on that since Dead Cells did it. I think it's one of those things like if you're in a team, that can be super effective. And if you've got a lot of animations for each character, that can also be super effective. Especially if like doing it in 2D would not be very reusable. But that's tough. You always have to make a choice when you're making a game. You're like, is this game a vector for learning? Like, am I going to be doing things I've never done before, like from a workflow standpoint, or am I trying to like get something done? And obviously I'm still learning a lot, but I didn't want to add certain things to it. Like I didn't want to learn 3D and learn C++ and learn all this other stuff. So I'm making like inefficient choices that just are like local maximums for me. Like where like I'm just better at 2D and I'm like better at C#. So I'm doing things that I would consider like technically suboptimal just because they work a little better for me. It's definitely very individual. You're gonna go to the YouTube one? Okay, I'll see you over there. Never mind staying on Twitch. There's like 20 seconds less latency. It's a trade-off. It's a trade-off. Because Twitch is 1080p at low latency. YouTube is 4K at high latency. So it's like, it's definitely can be disorienting. But YouTube is our record. So Knight's got the editor's going good. We're almost done. You think I should give it a try someday? What are you doing? What should I give it a try? You're learning how graphics is rendered using the GPU, shaders and buffers, rendering passes. Yeah. I've messed around that stuff. Before this game in Godot, I was working on like a more voxelized version in Unity that was 3D, and it had like a custom scriptable render pipeline. And I was getting into a lot of that stuff, which Unity made really annoying. So I'm glad I don't have to worry about it. So yeah, so this is our editor. I just made a bunch of floors. Our editor combines a bunch of stuff like a tile block tool. It combines a cutaway system so that you can like see into these 3D objects, because obviously that's our big problem. It's got like a flood fill system, so it can tell where the compartments are. So you can tell, if you watch this as I make these rooms, the rooms will lighten up. So these are now known interiors, and so the cutaway is also like defaults to cutting away whole rooms if it can. It only does the partial cutaway stuff if like it can't figure out what room you're trying to do. But so we can add some compartments. This is all very rough and it's very gray boxed, but we can add a partition here. We can add another partition here. Sorry, this is like the same demo I always give. I know people get tired of it, but it's just an example of kind of how the tool works. So yeah, so we can do some fancy stuff with that. There's a lot of wall-based cutaway. We talked about our doors. So we're working on making the autotiler smarter when it comes to this kind of stuff and being able to figure out when an arrangement is invalid. I want to extend this more generally because it could be very useful in the case of so let's say we've got some set of compartments over here, right? What if we try to build another set of compartments over here that's not connected to this one? Well, these one of these sets, kind of arbitrarily, should be interpreted as being invalid, because you can't have like a ship that's like got genuinely separated components. We talked about making it so the game just wouldn't let you build something if it was invalid, but we don't like that as much. So I would want this section over here to be replaced by invalid blocks. So that's why we're making it. And we want it to auto tile, because right now this isn't auto tiling. You can see all the outlines. So we want to swap it out here with something that will auto tile. But yeah, the editor's going good. We're probably getting relatively close to wrapping it up, and then we're gonna work on like the game simulation. So like once you've built a ship, how does it work? How does power travel around it? How does someone that's in the ship handle pathfinding? You know, we need to work on. We're still working very much in tools and very much less in the game itself at the moment. But I can see the light at the end of the tunnel. We've got a task list here that's like here. So we're doing okay. We're working on auto tiling invalid blocks right now. We've got a few other things in progress, but I think we're gonna stop after these 3 here. Once we get these out, I think we're gonna wait on the rest of these. And I really want to move on to the shipboard simulation. You know what I need to do? I need to find room in here to put our potential little desktop companion app, because it will probably sit here. It'll probably sit somewhere between the alpha MVP. Maybe it'll precede the alpha MVP. I'm actually not sure. We have to think about this, because once we're done with this, we could make our desktop companion app. We don't need a scenario editor. or a 9-box battlefield, really. But the MVP needs that. So maybe we'll add another section over here. I don't know. Or maybe I'll add a little card here and have like a thing here. So what if we add like a card here? Lo-fi. Flyby is kind of what I want to call it, but it's really a desktop companion app. Thinking about some fun stuff we could do. Have it like out here. Like this. Whatever, we don't need to talk about that right now. Could you have a room that spans 2 stories in height? Oh yeah, definitely. So we could... the cutaway doesn't totally understand how to handle that case, but I can show you. So here's like a single floor, right? Can make it real quick. So the cutaway system needs to get a little smarter. So here's like a single floor, right? What we can do is we can add 2 more floors. And then what we can do is for the upper floor, we can actually erase this section of it. I love this track. And then erase this section of it. And now we've made a room that's 2 floors tall. The cutaway, when you're up here on this higher level, it's like, it should just remove the lower wall, probably, but we're actually working on a new input system that might change that, so I haven't done it yet. I love this track. It's just called Farmlands by Harris Heller. Yeah, Digitanigans makes a good point about using that little desktop companion app as an overlay in the stream to give a very visual example of kind of the stuff we're working on. I think that's super smart, and I think that might actually cause me to prioritize that. I kind of want to find like an idle jam, like a 2-week or a 1-month idle jam or something that would let us like prototype that as part of something. I mean, who knows? Maybe I need to help set one of those, something like that up. It would need to be a jam that allows for pre-existing assets and code. But I think something like that would be a good way to force us to like get something playable out. But we don't want to do that anytime soon because we have a jam scheduled in early September already. The Down to Jam. The Down to Jam jam. Awesome. The building on the game will be lots of fun. Yeah. I don't know how... I'm still thinking about like how player facing that is, because right now it's just an editor tool for me and for like modders. So I'm not sure how... The game is kind of set up to be a bit more like a roguelike. So the fact that it's run-based means you probably won't have much opportunity to change the arrangement of your ship, but some amount of that I think would be really cool. Even if it's a little static. But obviously decoration and stuff like that should be freeform. That's part of the fun of this little desktop companion app we're describing, right? Is there could be like aesthetic upgrades, or you could like rearrange things. So it's definitely an important aspect of the game. Even like regardless of how important it is during a run, during any individual run, it'll probably still be pretty important. Is this the right size? Yes, it is. Shenanigans, does your flood fill handle a room that is 2 floors tall like you demoed most of the way, but halfway through has a floor in half? Are you talking about like there's a big tall room and then inside of that tall room there's a little room? The flood fill system can figure that out. The problem is that the cutaway system won't really know what to do. So the cutaway system might misbehave, but the flood fill system can tell. As long as a room is fully enclosed, it's just looking for a floor, a ceiling, and 4 walls, essentially. But yeah, the cutaway system is not as smart. The cutaway system is like based on axis-aligned bounding boxes. So you can do some weird nesting doll stuff that will cause the cutaway system to kind of freak out. Nightska, community-built ships could be incredibly interesting. Yeah, I'm leaning on... We're very much conscientious of the fact that, like, I'm an individual. I'm, like, a solo developer, so, like, I don't have time to make a ton of content. Obviously, I'm going to need to make a lot. But we're taking a very similar development approach to Cosmeteer, which actually should have a free video up on the GDC Vault about their development, which they did very much in public. The game was free to play while it was in development, and we're going to do something very similar. Because I really want to get people's hands on this as soon as possible, get people working with it, get people creating stuff. Sharing content's a little scarier and is not something we're really going to support until we have Steam Workshop. But the content creation part, I think, is something we want. We want to encourage people to do, and we want people to do it early. And we're spending so much time on tools that I want to get some value out of these, right? Like the desktop companion app would just be a subset. It just uses like a set of our tools that we already have. Like how do we get more out of less is a question we have to answer. Considering we're just a part-timer, solo dev part-timer. Not quite. Did Shenanigans, when you made the big 2-story tall room, you erased the floor to achieve that instead of erasing the whole floor. What happens if you only erase half of it? Oh, yeah, that would be fine. Because it is a proper flood fill in that it will explore the enclosed space, so it can work its way around a floor. You're basically describing this, I think. You can let me know if it's not this. So we're going to do that test. I'll make 2 floors. I will go to this floor, and you want to just erase like half of it. Like this. And then we can make some walls. Yeah, I want this sort of thing to work because you can imagine like a cargo bay having scaffolding, or an engineering bay having like an upper level, like the Enterprise has like that three-story warp core room or whatever. So if we do that, it works pretty much fine. Again, the cutaway system is like very opinionated. So it's like right now you would just be up here or you'd be down here. I think our new input system will make it a lot more intuitive about working in this space, because if you'll remember, we're trying to switch to like, right now we hard code what Z level we're interacting with the scroll wheel. So I just scroll up to move up 1 level and scroll down to move down 1 level. And that's the only level I can interact with. But once we do like a pseudo raycast, then it'd be really easy to be like, I'm mousing over this, so we're up here. And then like, I'm mousing over this, so now we're down here. So we're definitely going to be working towards something like that. Cool. There are other things we need to think about. Like, what if I left the floor, but I left the floor in the middle and nothing was supporting it? Those should probably get switched over to, like, invalid tiles, right? We need to add some kind of tile validity system that does testing for invalid tiles. Which I didn't really have in the to-do list, so that's gonna take some time. But we don't need to do all of that right now, because it's one of those things where it's like, I'm the only one making ships right now, so if I make a ship that's invalid, that's like on me. So honestly, I don't even really need to do this invalid part, but I want to. I want to at least lay the groundwork so that it's easy. Rhiannon Journey, is there going to be some sort of physics where if a floor is blown up, things will fall down? There probably has to be, you know? I don't want to do that. Like a Dwarf Fortress cave-in is kind of what you're describing. I don't want to do that, but I probably will need to, because I think there will be destructible terrain to an extent, because why not? It makes things interesting. Like if a wall gets blown up, it could cause, you know, depressurization. If there was a power conduit running through that wall, it could force power to redirect throughout another part of the ship and might overload a conduit somewhere else. Like, it's probably a must-have in terms of like emergent gameplay. But yeah, that is not going to be the most fun to set up. If hulls are getting blown up, it makes sense an attached floor would get messed up. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, so you could imagine like a scaffolding getting blown up at one end and the other end not being able to hold it up anymore, so the whole thing just collapses. So there's going to need to be like an integrity system for sure. Because there's some other physics stuff we want to do too, like, right? Like explosive decompression is very physical and might end up throwing people or equipment around. So we're gonna need kind of our own tile-based physics system. The only benefit is that it can be tile-based at least. So it's not this like incredibly granular thing. All right, that's it for that one. How short is this by comparison? This is 3 pixels shorter. Okay. Actually, yeah, let's do that. Like, what if you shot out the floor under an enemy warp core and it just drops out? That would be pretty funny. That would be pretty funny. It, like, falls out of the ship. I mean, there's a question of center of mass, right? So, like, explosive decompression might cause you to get thrown out of something, but, like, I don't know. There's some complex stuff going on there that I don't want to think about. Nice, good. You think the biggest problem with the 2D isometric approach is the fixed camera angles, which will make it harder to place objects compared to 3D? You can maybe rotate the ship in the x-axis. The ship has the ability, or the camera and the ship actually, but both, we support 90-degree rotations. And that's a nice thing about separating the simulation layer from the rendering layer, is the simulation layer has like a canonical representation, right? But we can just render everything as if the camera was 90 degrees turned. We're having some issues with some transform math, so I can't show you it at the moment, but I will say that in the past it has worked. And I just need to sit down and work out some annoying vector stuff, some matrix stuff But yeah, we will support camera rotation because that does make it easier to look and also to place. So we got that taken care of. It's just it's still a bit of a work in progress. Because the ship could turn too, right? Like you might never turn the camera because most players, funny thing, in a top-down or a strategy game, most players don't like turning the camera because it messes up their sense of direction, right? But the ship itself might still turn because we actually have a bit more positionality intended in this game than FTL does. So ship rotation will be a thing. Obviously, it'll only be 90 degrees. Nyx, you're talking about your crazy RimWorld, your jacked up RimWorld character. Oh my god, you're describing someone who basically was the Black Knight from Monty Python. You had a character with a monosword that dealt tons of damage and could fight like hundreds of characters on her own. But she got both her legs chopped off and both of her arms at 1 HP. So she had to punch the last couple of mechs to shreds, but she did it. That's amazing. But yeah, it sounds like she ended up as like the Black Knight. And it was like, it's just a scratch. I like that. That's really funny. It would have gone better, but at the beginning of a fight, a mech got both of her eyes. So she was blind during this entire fight, Nyx? That's insane. Yeah, just a flesh wound. Exactly. You thought of everything already? No, I certainly have not, Nightska. We have been working on this for like a year and a half on stream. So we've thought of some stuff, but people are always reminding me. People are always letting me know what I could be doing. We've gotten lots of great ideas from the community. What am I saying? I mean, I came up everything by myself in advance. All of this was planned out. But yeah, it's very much a living game. We don't have much of a design doc because it is such a living project that it hasn't really made sense to do very much of that kind of stuff yet. We've done design work, but hey, Fusionist, happy Friday. How's it going? All right, now I just got to add the tops and the bottoms here. Wow, that makes me dizzy. I do not like this illusion here. This illusion, Michael. It's the same on both sides, right? Oh. No. It's not. Dang. That's fine. We were going to have to stop using alt tiles anyway. This is actually not the same on both sides. And I did that so that the checkerboard pattern would be correct across the whole thing. This is going to be a little harder than I thought it would be. Did the scope change too much since the beginning? Kind of. I think the thing that's been really the question is the size of the ships. We've definitely blown up in terms of like the size of ship that we intend to support. Like originally, I really wanted the game to be a single screen game, like FTL, where like everything you can see is always on the screen. But the problem is that is really restrictive, especially for the perspective that we're using. So we have increased the scale, I would say, of what we intend to support in terms of sizes of ships and stuff. So we're slowing the game down. We're maybe adding a little more RimWorld and a little less frantic tactics game like FTL or Void War. Fusionist, you're drawing, working on tunes. Let me guess, I'm making a default texture. Yeah, this is our source engine invalid block. So this is what we're going to substitute in when the system detects that a block cannot exist where it is. I should consider not shaving until the game releases. That's hilarious. There's hockey players that do that where they're like, they won't shave for like years. They'll be like, not until I get that Stanley Cup. That could be me. I'll be like a gray beard by the end of that. Yeah, we're working on this, Fusionist. I'm gonna pick your brain at some point about digital audio stuff because I want to start working on that more. We've been kind of adjusting our idea on, or expanding our idea of a little companion app that we want to make. Like we've got an idea for one that's like a small ship that we make, and we use it. We have like a flyby kind of. The ship is kind of just cruising along in a little window in the corner of your desktop, and like whenever it's traveling from place to place, the crew member is like basically asleep at the wheel, and then they wake up and they like move some cargo around, and then they like go to the next place and like fall asleep, like Rokupa's Idle Island, which we've been talking about a lot. I want to make a little companion app. I think it'd be fun. And I want music to be a big part of it because it's like a very ambient thing. So I need to start working on digital audio stuff. We have a tentative idea for it. I'm thinking of it as like the name that came to me last night was something like Lo-Fi Flyby, and it's just like a chill little. Diginanigans had the idea of, if we make this, we could even just put it in a corner of the stream, and people could actually see the kind of thing that we're working on. I'm very tempted to do it once the ship simulation gets a little further along. Once we can do pathfinding and I can make ships that have a little more aesthetic value to them. I think it would be a really interesting vertical slice, or beautiful corner, as Tim Kaine calls it. But yeah, I'll need to make a soundscape for it. And I still haven't done really any digital audio stuff. I've done a lot of physical audio stuff. Like, I'm not a stranger to music production per se, but I've never made synthetic music before. It'd be really fun, possibly something you can make during a jam as an excuse. That's what I was thinking. I've actually been looking around at like a jam that's like pretty long. I don't usually do long jams, but for this I would probably want like a month-long jam or something. Something that allows you to use pre-existing assets, or code at least. I think that could be really fun. If the theme is farming, you jam farming flyby and just reskin the game afterwards. Yeah, I think we could find something that works for us sometime. I don't really have a timeline for this. I got to figure out where I want to slot this in development. Whether I want to try to do this before we get our MVP or after. The responsible part of me is like, wait till after, but then the other part of me is like, do it now. Do it now, as soon as the tool is finished. It would be a good test of everything we've been working on up until this point. Do it now. That's what my brain is doing. Can't do it immediately. I've already got a jam on my schedule for early September. In about a month, we'll be doing the in almost exactly a month, we'll be doing Down to Jam, which will be fun. My preferred format of the 72-hour jam with a solo category. That's to me is peak jam for me. 72 hours, solo dev category. But yeah, for this we'd probably want at least like a month. I looked around for idle jams. I wasn't able to find very many. Which is weird because you'd think that would be a great genre to jam to. D2J solo is 72 hours? I think so. I don't think they force you to a lower time limit, which is nice. I consider that an improvement over Ludum Dare. I think the solo dev jam is also like number 8 or whatever just started today. I wish I had time. Their new page is up. Yeah, Adogon has been working crazy on that website. It is looking good. Pita Jam. Here, watch this. I'll move out of the way here a little bit. We're just gonna sit here for a second. Oh, who's this? Who's that? It's me. I got into the trailer. I'm one of like 2 people whose faces are in the trailer. It's too funny. But yeah, I think... Yeah, you have 3 days, whether or not you're doing ODA, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, very excited for this jam. Dita Jam website's come a long way since you've last seen it. Yeah, Adogon works on it all the time. That's scary, Fusionist. You're used to the LD compo now. What are you even going to do with the whole extra day? Overscope, obviously. You're going to overscope. That's the only thing to do. This might force me to rethink my whole tile atlas setup. The fact that we can't just use the mirror of this texture because it's not mirrored. That's frustrating. But let's finish this and then tackle that. I don't know if I have it in me to be like genuinely productive today, so we're just gonna keep messing around with this. Shenanigans, an extra 24 hours. That means you can add in another feature that takes 36 hours to make. That's exactly right. Yeah, Nyx has gone over to the... Nyx is in pretty deep in RimWorld. The current mod count is 410. If I could add custom stream goals, that would be great. If I could just add a goal to the channel page that was like Nyx's mod count, 410 out of 500. Someone's ringing my front door. Hold on, let me try to see what's going on here. That's a delivery person. I have this door gate that does not unlock, and it's this battle every time someone delivers something. It doesn't open. You send it the command to open, the door does not open, and it makes no sound to let you know that it's unlocked. Insane. Who needs security? All right, so we're gonna have to make a different version of this. I'm gonna finish this just so I have it, but then we're gonna need to make a different version. I'm thinking about separating the outlines from the inner texture in cases where the inner texture doesn't change. So maybe we'll come up with a new paradigm for what that kind of a texture atlas should look like, where it's a constant interior texture regardless of the outline structure. Because the reason I did this is the intention is like the edge of a texture or the edge of a tile map series. Like if you've got a middle piece and two edge pieces, the two edge pieces should look different, right? It shouldn't just be exactly the same. The thing is, all the texturing we're doing right now is flat. So you don't notice that, but I was trying to think about that when I came up with the structure. So I don't know, I gotta rethink that a little bit. And it's heating up here in the city. I'm having to like open the window and cool down. I know it's like August. Most people have been experiencing summer for some time, but in San Francisco, our summer is from like August to like October. So I'm just starting to get it. And I'm kind of enjoying it, but I'm also kind of sweating. Kind of sweating here. But I don't want my neighbors to know I'm a strimmer, you know. I don't need that kind of attention. You hate summer, Nix? Yeah, I definitely prefer cooler weather because to me it's easier to cope with it, to deal with it, than it is for me to cope with hot weather. Like nobody in San Francisco has an AC unit. Because you don't need it. You need it for like 2 weeks out of the year. So we just suffer. Because we're normally just very cold here. All right, we're going to have a classic moment here where we do all of this work, realize that the work didn't totally fulfill our needs, and we just have to redo it in a slightly different way. But you know, that's game dev, and I'm okay with it. Because if it isn't obvious, I know it's obvious because I literally said it, but we're very much just pretending to be productive today. It's Friday, it's hot out. I'm ready for the weekend. You're ready for the weekend. Let's just chill. You know, to the extent that we can chill. I missed a pixel? Now you tell me? Dang it, DIGINanigans. Eagle-eyed over here. I missed a bottom left pixel. I don't believe you. Oh, yeah, it's right there. All right, I do believe you. I'm sorry, I doubted you. AC in Germany is pretty much non-existent as well. Yeah, fair. had some great streams this week, though. I'm uncomfortable with all the attention we've been getting. Today seems like a lot more chill, which I'm happy about. Oh, hey, NanoDev. Oh, you were one of the recipients of Nix's great generosity. That's great. How are you doing? How's it been? Haven't seen you in a while. I'm annoyed that this fallback texture is going to work differently from every other texture we have in the game. Honestly, you could argue that the fallback texture doesn't need to have outlines, but I kind of want them to. It would certainly be a lot easier to make if I didn't include it, though. You been good? You're lurking now and then. Mostly busy. Yeah, no worries. Hope dev and life and dev life are all going well. I spotted it. I didn't leave that pixel behind this time. Quick check. Yeah, we're good. You sort of need them because if they didn't exist, then you would just have a missing texture mess. Is that an indication of what's going on? It would just be one texture repeated over and over again. Yeah, true. But yeah, we don't really need the outline. But I like it. I like it. And we're very influenced by the source engine. The source engine was the first thing I tried to use to make anything. And back then it was just making maps for Half-Life 2, which I wasn't particularly good at, but I enjoyed it. It was my first introduction to doing any kind of game dev stuff, just source engine maps. All right, almost there. And then we can start doing this for real, because I've noticed a crucial, fatal flaw in this approach. I'm not super pleased with the half block, the way we're handling the half blocks. We're kind of taking a lazy approach. Oh, we can't actually support this the way that I want to. Man, I just realized that the way the autotiler function works, this isn't going to have the intended effect. I would need to add support for this. I would need to add support for a different kind of tile map in the autotiler, which might not be too easy. So that's concerning. Oh well, we got this though, at least. Save it. Yeah, the problem is the way I've written this is it's not a mirror because of this cross-hatching thing. Oh yeah, I want to change the outlines, huh? Yeah, there we go. Hull default select, hull default invalid. It's good enough for now. I'm not going to worry about it. I don't think. Mainly because we can't support anything else anyway, so why worry about it? Let's just see about... Let's see about supporting it as an auto-tiling layer, and then we can worry about the details of like exactly what texture we would use. I mean, we're just going to use the texture I just made because I made it, but that's one of those annoying problems that I'm just going to leave in the game because fixing it is onerous at the moment. And it seems like a relatively low priority thing to fix. So what we need to do, we need to add this to the tile set. So we go into our tile set. I want to change the whole way of how this works. I kind of want to make one tile set per layer. Or per hull type. Instead of this mess I have right now where there's just this single huge tile set that we have to maintain. I don't want to do that. Because it'll be easier if you don't need to make one huge tile set, but instead you could make small, much smaller tile sets, and then you could actually associate the source ID with the layer more easily, with the tile layer. I think that's reasonable. I think that would be reasonable, a reasonable difference. So if I were to do that, it would look more like... Because part of what I'm trying to think about is I'm trying to think about the future. I'm trying to think about when we've got other tile shapes, like these angled shapes and stuff like that. And how I'm going to distinguish the tile set. So a tile map layer can only really have one tile set loaded to it. So we have to think about it like that. So that's how we have to organize it. So when we go in here and we can look at editor levels. We can look at, so we've got our hull levels. So we support 8 levels right now. So like 8 vertical layers of like floors and walls and stuff. That's what we support. And then each of those levels has a number of layers. And the layers that we support right now are deck layer X, deck layer Y, deck layer Z, bulk layer X, bulk layer Y, bulk layer Z, and door layer. That's what we support. And then each kind of overlay has its own set of levels. So right now we have a select overlay. We have what I currently call hover, but is that kind of pending interaction kind of... I might call it active. It's like an active overlay that shows like what you are mousing over and what you're like click dragging and stuff. It's different than a selection, I guess. So we have a layer for that. So each layer needs to have its own tile set. And that complicates things a little bit. Because that makes it hard to like mix different tile sets. So like if you build a ship, You can't have like walls that draw from one tile set in one spot and then they draw from a different tile set in another spot. So maybe it is this case where we're going to have to build these tile sets up as we create the ship and as we like load in different parts of the palette. So maybe you're like, I want to load in this palette, and the palette is like walls of different shapes and different colors and stuff like that. And you're like, I'm going to use this palette. And so that palette gets loaded up to the tile set. In which case, I guess we'll have one tile set that supports maybe a whole ship. Yeah, there's some interesting stuff we could do here that I gotta think a little bit more about. We also need a process for identifying when tiles are invalid. Yeah, so and that's the other question is, do you want the invalid tile to be its own overlay and it basically paints the invalid tile over anything underneath, and then we don't have to worry about cleaning up stuff that's not reading correctly because the overlay will just cover it and hide it? That might work. Or do we substitute? So like if a wall is invalid, do we just put the invalid tile or texture directly into that wall layer? I'm tempted to do it as an overlay. I think that's better, because then we only have to do it once. So maybe we pie in the sky kind of think about how we would want to organize. So how are we going to actually organize something like this better? And it raises concerns about, like, we have this. I'm going to turn it to something else so that we can actually look at it without our eyes bleeding. This is probably the best one. We have all these different outline combinations. What we don't have is, so we have ones where the outline is on top only. I ran into a case where we needed outlines at the bottom only. So we needed like this bottom section to be outlined. That happens in one specific case that I didn't want to fix because it was like I would have had to double the size of the texture atlas just to fix one edge case. So we didn't do it, but let me see if I can recreate it. Because if I'm thinking about this stuff, it's a good thing to keep in mind, that requirement. Oh, I went too far. I did too much. Why don't I have a floor here? Or ceiling, I guess. There we go. So if I make a bunch of floors, I divide them up. Oh, it was a problem with the selection overlay. So if I do a selection like this, oh wait, that's not doing what I expected to do. Oh, I turned it off. I turned it off, right? So we have this selection overlay, and you can see the white outlines replacing the black outlines pretty much in every case. But the thing it doesn't do is if I do this, if I drop to like a half wall, you can see these black outlines. I think I want a white outline along the wall here in this case. Then I also technically want a white outline on this wall, but only halfway down. What I should think about too is like what textures can appear and what texture combinations cannot appear. Because I think some combinations literally can't happen. But I've drawn them out because it was easy to just do all of them. But I feel like I should be maybe a little more scrutinizing if I'm going to do this. And actually think about what combinations cannot occur. So like we could have this case where we want this outline to show up only for the bottom half of a tile on one side, but the other side can't happen because there will always be an object in front of it that would be obscuring it in that kind of situation. So it's really something you only need to deal with in one direction. So do we bother to do it from the other direction? I don't know. Do I move away from just using alt tile versions? Alt tile versions of everything? Can we simplify things like, can we use alt tiles to simplify things like overlays? So what if I go in here? So if we're not going to use alt tiles, because right now we're using alt tiles as like the H flip version of a tile because all of our tiles are flat. So we can just generally, or if our tiles aren't textured, we can just do an H flip. And even in most cases when they are textured, we could probably just flip them horizontally and still be fine. But can we also say something like this? So if we take this alternative tile here, is this maybe a better way to do... all we can really do is some modulation stuff. Oh, we could apply a material. So we could apply a shader material. And then we're not talking about doing selections as if they were overlays. We could just talk about doing selections as a replacement. H flip, horizontal flip, X. As opposed to V flip, flip H. That's how we get like the Y facing version of a sprite. We just flip the X facing version. Yeah, that makes more sense. So what we could do, I'm tempted to put a shader material here that does something simple like it lightens up whatever's underneath it, and it takes the outline colors and turns them to white. I'm tempted to do that, then have to draw selection overlays for everything. I think that would be cool. There's no reason to do that with an invalid block because you wouldn't need to. That's a really great argument for how to make the selection overlay work, is to do it with a shader. A per tile shader. It's one of those things, it's like, is it more expensive to do it with a per tile shader, or is it more expensive to have another tile map layer that just handles that, right? Some overlays could not be done that way, but some overlays could, you know? know what I'm saying? Even better if we could automate a process for doing this somehow, which I guess is what the shader would be. It would basically swap the outlining, because right now we just have different textures. We just have an overlay that we put over when we do any of this stuff here. When we do stuff like, yeah, we have overlays here, but we could also just that wouldn't really work for this, would it? At least wouldn't work for this one, because this one we have this nice little grid section that's a benefit of opacity. We have like a low opacity overlay we've got going on here. But the selection overlay, I'm more tempted to say a selection overlay here should be an alt tile that we pick. I am tempted to do that as a shader, because right now we're like painting out the selections for everything, and we could just do it automatically. That's pretty tempting. That's not what we're working on right now, but I'm just thinking about how do we minimize the number of autotiler passes we need to run. Shenanigans. The cost of doing that in either method is near negligible. Your extra tile map layers is using more VRAM because it's more textures. But any computer made in the last decade shouldn't flinch. That's true, that's true. No, I am thinking it more in terms of optimizing asset creation than I am the runtime performance. That's more the way I'm thinking of it. And so it certainly would be easier from an asset creation point if the selected version of your tile was like automatically was just a shader, because we already use something like this as an outline creator. But I'm having to do really annoying things currently, like the way we handle the door proxies. They're being hand drawn, right? So like this door has like, I've had to make versions of the door that's like a selected version or a hover version. The hover one I'm not super worried about, but the selected version, this can get complicated, and it would be so much easier to just have a shader that just substitutes the outline color. If it finds an outline color, it just substitutes it with like the white, it just flips it to the white outline version, and then it could just add a little, tint if we wanted to the rest of the pixels, since it needs to test every pixel anyway. I'm kind of tempted to do that, to take that approach, because that's something we really need to redo, is the way we organize and construct our tile atlases. Because I'm just looking at all of these unique shapes that we're going to be making, which these are just the first set of straight lines. There's actually more down here. I don't want to have to draw all of these multiple times. And I don't want modders to have to do it either. I would love for a modder to just submit something like this. Just pack this in, these 4 faces, and then the tile atlas maker just like figures it out. In which case, I guess it doesn't matter. We could have the thing building the tile atlas make outlined versions of the tiles. Here's an argument for doing it as an overlay. I just thought of this. We'll see what people are saying first. Diginating is with a shader. You do that logic once, then you can just tweak parameters anytime you want to do something else, such as selection, copy, errors, etc. Whereas doing it all manually in the art, more straightforward, but a lot more work in the long run. It makes it significantly more work to make changes. Yeah. We could still automate that part at the art creation stage, I think, with like a little tool that like prepares the tile atlas, which is something I want to make anyway. Here's my argument for not. So the things that we're weighing is when you have the selection overlay, are you adding the overlay on an additional tile map layer, right? On top of the underlying opaque tile, right? That you're selecting. It would be cool if you just swapped to an alt tile on the tile map layer that just had a shader that did that for you. That'd be pretty cool. Here's one reason not to do that. We have to send over all the tile map layer data. And that means we might be updating this one big tile map layer just to change like one or two things. I guess that's not a good reason not to do it because we're going to be doing that all the time anyway. Like we'll be constantly sending over. I was thinking for a second that we could reduce the amount of stuff that we're sending back and forth between the sim layer and Godot if we didn't do it that way. Because if you have a separate overlay tile map layer, that's much smaller. That's a much smaller amount of data than like if you're like you have your big opaque tile map and then you have your little overlay tile map. Because you're not going to select the whole thing at once. You'll select little bits of it. And then so you just send that little bit over instead of editing this big bit and then resyncing the whole thing. Because right now we can't send a diff. Maybe that's our fault and we should be sending a diff. We shouldn't be sending the whole tile map data over time. But I think maybe your point, Diginanigans, still applies that this is we're all still in the realm of irrelevant performance, where nothing we've described represents a real performance limitation for a modern computer. That's probably true. All right, I want to experiment with some more tile layer layouts since this is becoming a concern for me. Not that. So what's a different way that we could pack this in that's less horrible? Well, for one thing, we shouldn't have this twice. If these are identical. I also don't think we should have to do this either. Or if we do, we should be able to lay it out more efficiently. Like this is the same, like I think we have this same tile present in like 8 different times, or at least 4 different times. Yeah, we do. So there's a lot of duplication, but I guess I don't mind that either. Our only real restriction on how we do this is the fact that we put all this effort into having a single unified auto-tiling process, and that kind of requires everything to be predictable. Oh, we can get rid of all this code. This is all our old door logic, which we replaced. This door logic was horrible. People were nice to me yesterday, but they were like, we can't read your code. I'm like, true. I'm glad we replaced it with this stuff, which is a lot slimmer. I mean, it's more lines, but it's a lot less dense. It's a lot more clear what's happening. This is like a whole bunch of crazy bitwise comparisons. You don't need. Get rid of that. So if we go down to the auto tiling portion, yeah, I think we should spend more time thinking about the art workflow. Because right now I just created one set of art and I was like, that's enough for gray boxing. Like I have a gray box, I can gray box now. But I think we do need to think more about the implications of making more art. We should spend more time on that. But it's Friday and I'm tired, so we're just kind of just wondering. We're just wondering about stuff today. We're not really getting much done. Wondering and wandering. All right, so when we do our create tile map cells, what we do is we figure out what layer we're talking about. And then we call the layer specific function and we pass in some data. Like, what atlas are we talking about? What are the cutaways? What's the key? What's the mask? So if we pass in the atlas, I guess we could have information that corresponds to that atlas that tells it how to index it. And that would allow us to have still a single function. And there we could have like a config file or something associated with the atlas that's like, this is how you read this kind of an atlas. That could help. Because we have this whole way that we're setting the atlas coordinates, which is essentially we essentially decide whether or not we can render, or whether we can get rid of an outline. So this is like, these are all the conditions that we need before we're allowed to remove the right outline or the left outline. Like, I don't remember which one's which. This one's probably the right outline. And this one's probably the left outline. And so as long as we keep that basic structure the same, I think we're okay. Because we also have this stuff that are these simple switch statements based on each atlas, which right now is like hard-coded, but that shouldn't be. What I should have is something like I should have these registered somewhere. I should get these atlases registered somewhere. Because the thing is, these are not hard-coded. Like, we need to be able to support tile atlases that are like submitted by like modders and stuff. So we need a way of customizing that to some extent and just having a clear way that we process it. Yeah, that sounds okay with me. So a way I thought about simplifying this whole process, so right now we've got this horrible mess of combination of outlines and underlying textures. I think it would be cool to do something like this. So how big is this? 512 by 256. Let's see if we can shrink this down at least by half. So what if we did this instead? Let's say 256 by 256. So what if we just took this? I'm going to do this. The example that we want is really this invalid hull. I'm just a little sick of looking at it. Maybe we should do this as the example. It's a little dizzying looking at the checkerboard pattern for too long. Well, we definitely should get rid of this bottom half, which I have this because this is duplicated. This top section and this bottom section are exactly the same. So why is that? Maybe we should stay kind of on topic and keep working on the invalid stuff. It's just the first time that I'm going to need to have a texture that doesn't just depend on horizontally flipped alternative tiles. it's actually got unique y-axis tiles, so I have to think about how I want to organize a tile atlas that looks like that. So why do I have this split like this? Wall top. Ah, I know why. We're using the same source ID to describe a half block as we are describing a full block. I don't know if we need that. I don't know if we need to do it that way. So let's look at something simple. I say simple. Let's look at something like this. I'm still thinking about how I want to turn something like this into a tile atlas. I kind of want to do it block by block, because I feel like there's no real limit in the number of source IDs that I can have associated with a tile set. Maybe there is. I should probably look that up. Tile set. And when I say no limit, I mean like no meaningful limit. Like there's obviously like the max value of an int. I just want to see if that's true.
But that doesn't mean that you should stop dreaming. The feeling I get from this is waking up in the middle of the night from a nightmare that you thought was real but really isn't. Dreams are weird.
Add tile set source.
It's there. And for a while I was really scared of them. Like, it's definitely something that doesn't happen every day. But
So this is a source.
I knew what was going on and why it was happening. It made a lot more sense and I became okay with it.
The source can only be added to one tile set at the same time. That's kind of interesting. I don't totally understand the implications of that. Hey, bad cop, how's it going? I see they're adding Godot videos again after like taking some time off. I'm still waiting for yours. Still waiting to rewatch yours. Digital milliamp. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. I like that. Yours is tomorrow, guaranteed. If not, you're uninstalling the internet. Well, there it is. That's the decision. Ejecting the AOL disk and never looking back. It's funny. I don't know. It looks like I can have as many source IDs as there are integers. It's kind of what I'm seeing here. I mean, not that we would ever get to that point. And then what we'd probably end up doing is having a different tile set that represents a given ship. We're just going to need to build it out a little bit because you can kind of mix and match textures, huh? Or you can mix and match different parts, quote unquote. We've made a horrible like source engine style default tile map texture thing. Do you remember when they put internet on CDs? Yeah, I don't know how they fit the whole thing on there. I guess the internet was just smaller back then, right? But the problem is, unlike every other texture set that I've made so far, this one is not... You can't get the Y... You can't get the horizontally flipped version You can't get the opposite face by just flipping this horizontally, which is a problem. So I'm having to rethink the way I organize these a little bit because you see this isn't a mirror image of this. So I'm having to actually add in the Y facing bits, and I'm just thinking about some stuff. It's forcing me to think about the mistakes I've made in my life and the decisions that have brought us to this point. It's not good. But yeah, what have you been up to? 1 month till down to jam, and I'm down to jam, so that's exciting. Otherwise, we're just cruising here. Are you down to jam? Unclear. Fair. Shenanigans, you remember watching a video on YouTube? You meant to click it, go make a sandwich, and hopefully it would be done buffering enough to be usable by the time you sat back down. Yeah, that's the internet we remember. Maybe you'll do it. Yeah, I want to do it. It also might be my last jam for the year because the October Ludum Dare is always scheduled like the one weekend that I'm unavailable. Every time, every single year, it's scheduled the same weekend that I'm unavailable. The only one, mind. So it's very frustrating. I want another crack at Ludum Dare, but I don't think I'm going to get it until the spring. So I guess I'm just going to have to be down to jam. And I feel like I have a responsibility because I'm on that homepage for it. I feel like if I don't do it, that'll be shameful. All right, so we need to funnel this through the same process no matter what. So we can't just say alt tile is 1 for the Y faces. Should we do all of that? So I'm kind of, this is forcing me to rethink the structure of my tile atlases, which I have been putting off for a long time, but which definitely needs to happen. And I'm thinking about how I want to represent cool things like this fun shape. I would like to be able to define this block with just these 4 drawings and then maybe like normal map them. And then from that, I'd have like a tool that could say, okay, I got you. Here's something. Here's like a fun thing. And it could make like, could make something out of it. The problem is, what do you do if you do something like this? You would need to know about the edges so that if we do something like this, it could say, all right, I got you. Let me get rid of this outline for you. So we need to know how to handle that. And that seems tricky. Hey, Faust Circuits. You started reverse engineering Noida with Gidra last night? Wow. Gidra. Software reverse engineering framework. Okay, okay. What are you thinking? Are you just trying to discover the secrets of Noida without having to like get good at Noida, which I'm not. I love that game, but it stresses me out. But it's super cool. Definitely one of the coolest, architecturally speaking, games that have come out. So yeah, I really want to define an object as 4 drawings that come in like a consistent order. Where it's like, these aren't the perspectives of the objects. I don't know what these are. I think these are the directions of the normal from like the curved from like the angled. I don't know what this is for. But yeah, I would like to be able to do that. I would like to be able to do something like this. But what else do we need if we're going to do something like that? So this is the camera rotating counterclockwise. So the object is rotating clockwise. I think I'm okay with that. So we go through like these 4 stages or something, right? Actually, we could let's put them all in a row. So this is like our object. And then we would have like a normal mapped version of this. I guess I can leave the room. I'm gonna put the room back in here just because it's easier to look at when I do it this way. You wanted a native Linux version? Wow. And 64-bit. Crazy. Is that game not 64-bit? All right, so we would try to do like, oops, we'd try to do this kind of. So I think I need to do this version. So I was thinking like, do we draw it like this? Or do we draw it like this? Because I kind of need to know which. It's not enough to define an outline. You need to define which side the outline relates to, right? So we could do something like this. Oh, except the colors here would be flipped, huh? Would they though? If you're doing the normals to describe the shapes anyway, you could omit drawing the shadows on and just darken the colors based on the value of the normal. True. True. Honestly, the coloration would be irrelevant, like you said, unless it's like a texture. But yeah, I should draw it as if it's under all the same lighting conditions. Honestly, I just did it this way so that I could like better distinguish the shapes. But you're right, all of the faces should have the same color, like that. I just did it for like descriptive purposes, but you're very right. I should make it something like this. And in fact, it really doesn't matter what the color is if there's no texture. If there were details, like if there were like, I don't know, if there was any kind of textural details to this at all, I would draw them. But yeah. We should do kind of normal based lighting for that. Because I'm not sure what else I could do in terms of lighting with my system. My system is kind of scary to use, or is scary to think about trying to use with a 2D lighting model. With any kind of like that like Godot has, because we're like this weird awkward isometric thing. Well, no, it's not. Wow, that's crazy. Noida is a pretty wild thing. It's very cool. I know someone else who's doing something like that, a 2D side-on kind of Noida-like game, and they're doing the whole thing like in the GPU, like all the physics, everything, like I don't know how else you would do it. I don't know how Noida's doing it, but super cool. So yeah, I need to think about this model more and how I would transform, how I would go from these objects with maybe this description of, because this orange is supposed to mean this face, so we actually need to flip these. So we would say, and this yellow means a boundary between this object and the next object in this direction. There are some tricks here with the edges, which I'm concerned about. The corners. There's an issue with the corners in the outlines. It's hard to see during normal. Noida does it in the CPU. Yeah, that's what I thought. Then that's crazy. It's crazy town. I have an example of what I'm talking about somewhere. Hull map. Hull face mapping. Yeah, so there's a problem here with the dot structure if you do or don't do it. And what I mean with dots is, so we've got our outlines. So this is no dots. Do you see this thing that happens here? Like this? Where there's this gap? It doesn't look so bad when you do it this way, but this way you get this gap. And that's because when you combine these shapes, you have this one. So there's this shape here, right? Technically, this line is more of like a diagonal, but let's forget about that. So that corresponds with this one. So because this one doesn't have what I'm calling a dot, which is a outline right there, you get this weird little aberration. Does that matter if you're doing outlines over top? It matters if you are... Yes, because there's no adjustment for, like, if they're over top, they're being like laid directly over top, if I know what you're meaning. Maybe it doesn't matter over top. So you're saying like, yeah, it does matter because they'd all be the same size, the tiles. So there's no way to fix that like this. And this is the current paradigm that I use for outlining. There's an alternative called dots. I call dots. And that gives us this. So we fix that aberration. So the outline goes all the way through. It looks a little awkward here because you get this. You get this little orphan. But if you zoom out, it's a little weird, but it's... I think obviously this looks better than this. But this looks better than this. So I might take a mixed approach maybe. Is what I'd be tempted to do.
Our struggle as artists isn't about...
But yeah, you achieve that by adding these little corner dots. So if you add these little corner dots,
It's about tending to the broken parts.
but the problem is, there are cases where that's weird.
We create things as a
Where like you don't want to do that.
struggle.
Can you just take some kind of close the loop border filler? Yeah, we could. We've been talking about that. We've been talking about the possibility of separating the outline from the underlying texture, from the thing that's being outlined, because right now we just treat it as one thing.
Constantly strive toward.
You'd still need to like have a system that figures out whether you need to add the dot or not, because there are cases where you don't want to add the dot.
Like water.
So like
Water.
like this one, you don't want to have an outline here and an outline here and an outline here and an outline here. You don't want to form a little Windows, a little weird little Windows icon, right? If they're homogeneous. If they're not homogeneous, sure. So, I don't even remember what the purpose of doing this was. I was trying to make a point about something, but... So yeah, I'm kind of weighing up the options of... One reason for me to say that we don't separate the outline from the underlying texture is that most of the time, if you have an outline, you're also going to have like edge details. So like it still makes sense to have that tile with the outline and the edge details because they're both going to be there anyway. But I do see an argument for laying the outlines down as an additional pass that's separate. Did you miss anything? Not really. We're just kind of... This is more of a thinking about stuff stream. We're thinking about the consequences of the fact that this is the first block where we're having to deal with the Y face is not just a mirror of the X face. And it's calling into a question how I want to organize this tile atlas. And the problem is the way the autotiler is written is our atlases need to be arranged pretty consistently. We can't have like atlases that follow totally different rules unless we want to code that part in, which I don't really want to right now. Cool, you love thinking about stuff. Great. Yeah, it's been tough for me to think about these problems because I have not been texturing anything. Like if we look at my style guide here, there's texture in the image, but that's just noise that I'm applying. The only really thing I've been doing is a little bit of like shading at the edges. Which, like Diginanigan said, this kind of shading, this kind of edge shading, we could represent entirely in normal mapping. And then use a flat texture. So yeah, I'm thinking about that. I'm thinking about separating out the outlines. As a separate thing. I'm tempted. I'm tempted to do it. Speaking of weird stuff, will I add in special force field doors that keep the air in, but people can always go through? No. I don't think we'll do that. I think it'll be like there might be emergency force fields, like Star Trek style emergency force fields, but I think they'll block everything. So like if there's a hull breach, like maybe after the explosive decompression, the ship engages like an emergency force field if it can, or if you tell it to or something. I think that would block everything. I'd want you to have to use airlocks and stuff. Will there be a temperature system? I don't know. I've been thinking about that. I've been thinking about that for a particular reason. We were talking about it in the Discord. For people who are familiar, Cosmoteer is actually just came out with a big update called the Meltdown update that actually uses, you can see fire. It's actually got heat management now, which is like the bane. Anytime you're actually talking about ships. Hey, Walt. How's it going, Walt? This guy's great. We're taking a lot of inspiration from the way Walt made their game. But yeah, now they've got heat sinks, and they've got radiators, and they've got all the stuff that like a hard sci-fi ship. I think they even have a heat gun. Yeah, so you could actually turn your heat offensively. You could build a heat gun, which is pretty neat. It's pretty neat that it's a deck gun too. So yeah, you got to manage your heat levels, or fires will break out in the ships and stuff. I don't know if I want to do this. I don't know if I want to make that level of heat management something that you have to think about in this game. Maybe like within a system could become damaged or like overload or something like that, but like, I don't know. I think that might be a little much for what we're trying to do. So like, obviously life support matters because life support's going to be super important. So obviously if life support goes down and you can't maintain that, yeah, we'll probably have the temperature go down or up. I guess we'd have to decide. So maybe it will be to an extent, but definitely not like this. Not like it's crazy. Yeah, look at all these heat sinks. This game is amazing, by the way. I'm thinking about starting another playthrough of this. Cosmoteer is really cool, Nix. You would like this. It's on sale right now. Oh, oh no, that's just an update. Oh, he changed the whole, oh, that's cool. He changed his capsule art to cover the update, and that shows anywhere the game is being shown. That's neat. I haven't seen people do that very often, where they advertise their update in the little capsule art that shows throughout Steam. Smart. So yeah, I'm just thinking about how I want to render this ugly thing. That's the other thing too, is this has its own color for outlines. This doesn't use the normal outline color. It uses its own outline color, which is, I guess technically the outline color is just the darkest shade of any given ramp. So I guess it's fine. That's the other thing, is like, how easy do I want to make it so that you can recolor your ship? Should we draw, for flat textured stuff, should we just draw everything in grayscale? And then you can pick a palette in like the palette tool. You can pick like you're like, I want the walls to be reddish. I want them to be greenish. Do I let you mix those? I don't know. I don't know. We have a big player made. I wouldn't say player made, but we have a lot of content editing tools that are being very tightly developed along with the game. And it's a Canundi a little bit. Yeah, I think we do need these separate shades that represent certain edges. So like this shade represents the upper edge. This shade represents the right edge. I would call this the negative edge. Orange represents a Y surface. Green represents an X surface, an X facing surface. So we would need to flip these. I would need to do this. So this would be, this is the negative. So it would be this one. Oh, I'm doing the whole thing, aren't I? How do I have this set up? Are these not in this palette? Oh, these are the low sat colors. That's probably correct. I have a palette, and I have a low saturated version and a high saturated version. Which we could do some fun stuff with, for sure. So this is lighter, this is darker, this is a mid-tone. Okay, so we go color, negative, positive, color, negative, positive, color, positive, negative. I don't know if I love that. I kind of want to flip this. Oh, we can't. So we were talking about this. So the reason I brought up that dots thing is that'll actually affect the way stuff like this works. And it's maybe a good argument. That's the other thing too, is we were talking about like, oh, we could just apply the border, right? That's pretty easy to do when you're talking about simple shapes like this. I feel like that gets a lot harder to do when you're talking about unique shapes. But maybe that's just edge detection stuff. But I think, so over here, I had like a version of this where I thought I did. I thought I had one of these where I like sorted out the corners. Here's a good example, I guess. So this little corner belongs to both. So I almost need a different shade for this little corner piece that represents that it's for both. uncanny edge. Canny as in like the opposite of uncanny. But yeah, there's a lot of approaches we could take to this. I'm still figuring them out. We also have the complication of we have half-scale versions of everything too, for at least the external parts of the ship. But technically, we're going to need to do it for pretty much everything. We really bit off a big chunk of stuff here. Canny edge detector. Okay, yeah, I figured you were referencing something specific. All right, canny edge detector. Edge detection operator that uses a multi-stage algorithm to detect a wide range of edges and images. Oh, by John F. Canny. Canny. That's so funny. It doesn't have anything to do with canny or uncanny. It's literally the guy's name. Okay, this edge detector works pretty good. I think the problem for us is that we would know we need some more particular information about the corners. Okay, so it can detect horizontal, vertical, and diagonal edges. Cool. Super cool. It's pretty standard. Yeah, I'm not a real computer science person. I'm a game dev. Oh, this is really good. It's certainly good enough for like our purpose. I'm gonna bookmark this. I'm gonna read about this. A lot of the AI image models have a canny edge mode for image-to-image gen or depth filter. That makes a lot of sense. So we could say something like, so if we have a shape like this, if we have something like this, if I grab the version of this that doesn't have any edges described, or maybe it does. Could it tell where the corner is? Well, we could probably just tell where a corner is trivially because we could be like, is it empty there? Is it empty there? Great. Is it empty there? Is it empty there? That wouldn't work for anything that has holes inside of it. Oh, maybe it could. Maybe it could. Maybe we could identify corners without needing something that particularly complicated. Maybe we just test adjacent things. Yeah, maybe we don't need to describe these. Ooh, that'd be really interesting. We do still need to describe where the edges are. Like here, we would need to like interior edges, we would need to describe, but exterior edges could be guessed, huh? We could figure it out pretty simply. We could figure it out. It's an open CV if you just want a library. You're giving me way more credit than you should be for my level of ability to do things that are complicated like this. But that's good to know. I appreciate that. I want to think about this. Maybe I should just try to make some more of these. And just think about, we should think about the process of going from this to an atlas that we can use. And then we think about the different atlases that will make up each tile set. Because I kind of want it to work on the level of an individual object. Because you might be like, I use this kind of an object in my ship, but I like literally never placed one of these. So like, I don't need this in the tile set. I think that's fine. So I do want an object. I know this is like maybe an inefficient way to do it, but I kind of want it to be object based. So I define like, here's an object in 3D. At the 4 camera angles that we support in a particular order. I provide like a normal mapped version of it, or maybe we just figure out a normal mapped version of it. I don't know. I think I need to tell it at least which sides a face corresponds to. We can probably do some edge detection stuff to figure out, we can figure out where the upper edges are, where the left edges are, where the right edges are. We could probably also figure out where the diagonal edges are. It's a little harder when you talk about something like this, because these are all qualified diagonal edges. But a block like this doesn't necessarily have the corner problem, I don't think. Next, you're tired, but you want to work on your Discord bot? That is the trouble. I'm also tired. Which is kind of why we've only been like semi-competently rambling about things. Because I need a different direction for how I'm going to implement this guy. This guy actually has texturing that matters. It's repeating, so we can maybe do something that's like kind of in between, that's like kind of easy. And I guess if this is a special case, that's okay, because it's like, this is going to be our fallback texture, but I'd rather come up with something that's more general. So maybe let's just riff on this for a minute instead of worrying about the other thing, instead of worrying about this case, because this case is kind of complicated. Let's think about this case, which is easier. This is the same in all 4 directions. Oh, is it actually even weirder than I'm thinking about? Is it... I also don't care if it like isn't super consistent. Like if you rotate the camera 90 degrees, will you actually... Technically, you should see something like this. You should see like the opposite pattern. Yeah. And then, you know, again, 90 degrees again. So obviously this isn't unique for the other side, but this would be kind of it. And its normals correspond to like, it depends on how I want to describe, how I want to draw this. Something like this. There's also the fact that the upper texture will always overwrite the lower texture. So it almost doesn't matter. Like this can just be blue because this piece always gets overwritten by this piece. So instead what we could actually do is something like this. If we needed to. I don't think we need to, but we could. Do something like that if we were really concerned about the corners. If we really needed to describe where the corners were. Oh well. Close this. Close this. We definitely have a lot to think about. I appreciate all the knowledge that you're dropping, Faust. And yeah, I think we're going to follow the direction more based on asset creation and what's good for us creating these assets. And then I think the technical details of how to actually process that, I think that's what needs to happen. I need to decide what my workflow is for making new objects for the game, what I want, and how I can make that understandable and easy for a modder. It doesn't have to be brainless, but as long as they can like look at one of my textures, like the original texture file or whatever, as long as they can look at one of those and kind of understand how I got there, which means there will probably be visible versions of the textures that you can see that are like, we probably need to distinguish inputs from outputs. So like looking at an object at this level, this is an input. And then the game needs like an output level, which is like this kind of stuff, where we like know about the individual faces, because the autotiler operates per face, not per object, not per block. So we need to break it down into these individual pieces so that the autotiler can render it. But I want that to be different than the presentation here. But if we do it per object, maybe I don't need to be that smart about it. Maybe we can afford to be a little silly. Or if not silly, a little like blunt and a little more artist friendly and a little less hard-coded optimal kind of stuff. If I ever thought of making assets in 3D and then having viewports that look at and take a snapshot of the image from all the required angles, yep. I'm asked about that all the time. I call that the dead cell approach, or the dead cells approach. It's really good. The problem is I'm barely competent at 2D art, and we're using really low res. I have no 3D workflow skills, and I do not think I could make these kinds of things in 3D. Like, I would need to make computer consoles and screens and engines and all of this stuff. And I think for me, it's easier to just draw it out. But yeah, I think that is, if you have a team or you're a 3D artist, I think that is the best way to do it, you know? I think that's a good approach, a real good approach. We're also, if you'll notice, our perspective is kind of weird. We're doing 4x1 dimetric. So all of the environment is in perspective. But you'll notice that foreground elements like the chairs or like the characters, they're almost like pop-up book characters. They're like side on. And that's not totally an accident. It's kind of a side effect of I don't know how to draw characters like these in perspective that looks good. I think that's we could, you know, do the environment in 3D and then do the foreground characters in 2D. We could make a distinction there. There's another thing to think about too, which is there's stuff that appears in the tile map, like doors. Like we have these door proxies. So like this is a proxy for a door. And it's just to make it so that the autotiler has an easy time drawing the doors at edit time, like while we're editing. But what we're actually going to need is like, once you're in the game, all of the proxies get replaced by the actual node-based sprites. So let me find some. So like the door, because the door is not a tile, really. It's a node, because it might be multiple pieces, right? Like we have our double door. So we have our double door. This thing like animates, and it has two pieces that need to be broken in half. So like creating this is a whole different thing. And I wonder how I could make creating the proxies of this easier. Or if I could find a way that doesn't even rely on proxies. So this should also influence the way we're going to make this art. The workflow for the actual nodes, or the node-based sprites that we need for more complicated things like doors. Stuff to think about. Yeah, wow. I am more tired from the week than I thought I was. Must sleep? No worries. I really appreciate you hanging out. Helping us out here, Faust. Take it easy. Have a good weekend. We might actually do a Let's Play tomorrow, because I'm like thinking about trying to work tomorrow. I think I'd rather maybe play a game. Maybe that's what we're going to do tomorrow on stream. I need to figure out how I'm going to handle these guys, though. That's what we're supposed to be working on today, is the auto, is this. Auto-tiling invalid blocks. But doing that is kind of, it's one of those things where it's like, this leads to this, leads to this, leads to this. It's like changing one thing. You know, if you want to make an apple pie from scratch, you know, one of those problems. Like this too, I got to think about generating half wall. There's got to be a better way to generate half wall variants. And there probably is. For a lot of cases. For like a door, it's not trivial because like, oh man, this is going to be hard because the door actually needs to continue animating even if it's a half block. So I'm going to actually need a version of the door. I'm going to need a version of this that's cut in half. I'm just trying to minimize the amount of work that, like, I want the artwork flow to be sensible in a way that like a modder can understand it. I don't want it. I could make it super arcane and such that it's like nobody else but me understands the workflow. But I really don't want to do that. Like if you want to add a new door, I want it to make it super clear. Oh, we'll just pass in a sprite sheet that has the different sections of the door, and depending on how big a door it is and how many sections it has, it'll be interpreted different ways. Because this kind of door already needs to be split up into two pieces, which I've done. And we could automate that to an extent by using like by painting a normal mapped version of this, where we show that this interior section is a different face than this one, and maybe our like auto tiler builder could like help us split this sprite up. But it can't really, because it can't see behind here. So we have to do it layer by layer, which we've obviously done. So maybe that's it. Maybe it's more of like maybe we can find an a sprite workflow that helps out. I know you can pass data as a JSON file out of a sprite. So we could embed some data about the image in a JSON file associated with the image. I haven't used that for anything yet, but you can describe regions and provide information. So maybe there's some encoding stuff that we can do there that describes like the structure of the image a little bit, so we don't have to do things like edge detection and stuff like that. Maybe we can do something like that. All right, I have things to think about. I have stuff to think about. I don't think there's much we can do right now. We could make a first attempt at drawing a version of this block here. I need to think about the half block thing, because the cutaway system will like chop a wall in half all the time. And that definitely has an implication for a lot of this stuff. I know I said that already. I'm kind of repeating myself. Okay. I really do like this invalid block though. I love this purple, this deep purple shade. That's the outline. Although the problem with this, the way we did this, is that if we just replace, we should probably use a slightly lighter shade here. We've got like this shade, and this shade, and then this shade. We should probably use like this shade or something. That's too bright. What if we did this? What if we used this shade here? It's a very stark difference. And then, yeah, what if we did something like this? Just to make it a different enough shade. You can see. Maybe something like that. We're getting a little further from the original like source missing texture file thing. But this might make more sense for us. Something like this. Because I don't like the way that it kind of just blends together the outline. It kind of makes the outline more ambiguous. Which is cool, but not exactly what I want to do. I also am not going to replace all of these manually. I'm just kind of going around the edges. I'm not that crazy. Yeah, I think I like something like this. So we do this. Knock out a bunch of these in one go. Clean up the rest. Oh, missed one. Okay, I like this better. I like this better than this. It's got more clear structure. I think that was good. I think it was a good disambiguating the outline from the interior here. Should this one be a little lighter? I don't think so, because it would just be the same shade as this. No, it wouldn't. Maybe this one should be a little lighter. That would be more consistent, I guess. I don't know if it's better, but it would be more consistent. Let me think. Let me look at that. Let's look at that. Let's see if that's good. See if we like that. Oh, I missed one. Okay, so that's one option where we make these dots lighter. The other option is that we make these dots darker. We can decide what we like better. So this is the other option. Make these ones a little darker. It's a little more ambiguous with the outline. All right, so between those two, I like the bottom one better. It's still a different shade than the outline, so if we do outline detection stuff, we'll be okay. It's just one shade lighter. This is more than one shade lighter, though, isn't it? No, it's not. Interesting. We don't use this shade at all. It's fine. We want it to be a little jarring because that's like the point of it. It's like, this is wrong. We want to draw attention to it a bit. I think it should be this one. That's what I got down here. This is what we had before. It's too bright. Oh. I should do this in the other order. Should do like this. All right, I think we're gonna wrap it up here in a minute. We're at our 3 hours. I gotta get back to work. But at least it's Friday. Okay, I like this. We definitely have some stuff to think about in terms of the art workflow. I'm going to try to work on that or think about it over the weekend. I don't need to make a whole thing. I can just see what this looks like. Yeah, I like this. It's jarring, but it's not like overly... It doesn't look out of place with the rest of the art. Sure is Friday. Yeah, I know. Oh, you got the next week off, Nix? Nice. Trying not to spend it all in one RimWorld game. This isn't... The hover overlay doesn't render over this correctly. It's a little strange. Oh well. All right. Well, I think that's it for today. We got some good stuff done. We learned about some stuff. I gotta make some decisions. My favorite thing to do. It would be nice. You were sick this week and barely worked. That's okay, you know? That happens to people. Sometimes you get sick and you can't work. You should... Only in America do we feel bad about this, about being sick and not being able to work. I mean, you're in Germany, but... so maybe it's not only in America. But in America, it's a huge problem. People are very hesitant to take time off work for any reason, including illness. Bye, Diginanigans. Yeah, I want to thank you all so much for watching. You feel bad because you want to finish your website. That's a fair reason. I wish you luck. Enjoy your time off next week. Maybe I'll see you tomorrow for some RimWorld. Maybe we'll play some RimWorld tomorrow. But yeah, I want to thank you all so much for watching. I hope you all have a great rest of your day. And I'll see you next time. Bye.